but I liked the covers. I thought they were beautiful, and that was a thing that happened. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with November's haul. It's a big one. So it's time to talk about all the books I acquired in November, and it's a big one. As I was collecting, let's backtrack a little bit. As I was collecting all the books for this video, I was noticing how many trips to used bookstores, warehouses, or indie bookstores that we did in the month of November. This does include a little bit of a haul from the end of October, just based on how like filming schedules worked. So the first few of these are actually from October, but end of October as well as a couple of weeks into November, I met up with my best friend Lauren, and we went to quite a few bookstores. So we went to a few, like I said, used bookstores as well as small independent bookstores, and so I did pick up a few things that were new at the indie bookstores, but most of this haul is those bigger warehouse type stores that we visited when we were together both times. So as always, I will try to link as many of these as I can find down in the description so that you can dive into more of them, because there are quite a few historical romances here, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these I picked up for the author or the cover, and I don't even know what they're about. So it's gonna be fun, but it's a big one, so let's dive in. Starting right off the bat with some historical romance. The first one I picked up was a Lorraine Heath book, and that is Never Love a Cowboy. Actually, there's two here. Sorry. Never Love a Cowboy and Passions of a Wicked Earl. So, as I said the last couple of times, I am collecting Lorraine Heath books because this is an author that the friends that I do the Tessa Dare Buddy read with, we're going to move on to next. I'm not collecting a lot of her stuff yet because she's got like 50-something books, but I'm collecting the ones that are cheap. So, like the ones that are under $1, so that I don't buy all of her stuff right away, and then we're probably not going to get to her until maybe the middle of next year. So these two are just a couple of the ones that I hadn't picked up yet that were really, really cheap, and I also liked the covers. So Never Love a Cowboy is, I'm guessing, going to be a Western based on just the cover, but it has this beautiful step back as well, and I just like this cover. This blue is really pretty, and then the step back was beautiful, which is honestly the reason I picked that one up. And then Passions of a Wicked Earl I just didn't have yet. So again, do I know what these are about? No, but I just liked the covers. I thought they were beautiful, and I'm collecting her things. So this one is definitely an author buy, and I don't really know what these are about. Good times. Next two is purely cover buy, and that is the first two books in this series by Jen Halling, which are A Wicked Highlander and My Devilish Scotsman. I don't actually know which one comes first. I believe it's a trilogy. So I got the first two because they matched, and look how pretty they are, and they're Scottish romances. Need I say more? This one is My Wicked Highlander. This one comes first, and it says here on the back that this is a breathtaking new trilogy about three sisters, all of them witches, and their adventure in magic, intrigue, and passion. And so we do have them set in the Highlands and Scotland. So there is some magical elements to that, which is kind of exciting. I just think these covers are beautiful, with like the illustrations and the different, like, they're basically the same cover as far as the design of it, with like a castle or a palace in the background, the couple standing there, and then like a cloth coming over. But I just thought they were so pretty. And Highland, really all I need is now. I will say, I don't think I've ever said this, but I always do my hauls in the order I got them. So like from the first book I picked up of the month all the way to the last book of the month. So there's some of these that I could have made better sense as far as putting together, but this is the order I got them, so that's the way that we're doing it. So the next two are part of a series that I have been collecting, which are these two and the Highland Guard novel series, which is by Monica McCarty. So we have The Hunter and The Striker. There are I want to say like 10 or 11 books in this series, and I think at this point I've got almost all of them except for the last couple. So these were a couple of ones that I hadn't picked up. I have noticed there is a change in the cover. So these covers over here, which show no face and there's not really any kind of background, these are the ones that come first. And then the later books in the series have this one where we do see a face, you can tell there's a background, and there's a little more definition to the picture rather than this one. So just something fun that I have discovered there. So this is an earlier part of the series and a later part of the series. So I talk about the series all the time whenever I pick them up. I don't know what each individual book is about, but the series as a whole follows the Highland Guard, which is this group of people that are like the best of the best that King Robert has kind of collected in Scotland. And so each book follows a different person that's part of this guard, which is why there's so many. And I can't remember how many it says, but they're made up of talented warriors and soldiers that are dedicated to the king and country. So these are just the next two that I saw there that I didn't have. Moving on to some not rom-com historical romances, I picked up another Agatha Christie book, and this is N or M, and this is a Tommy and Tuppence mystery, which is one that I don't actually know anything about. I know her Poirot stuff, and then I know her Miss Marple stuff, but this is like a third series of detectives that I don't really know anything about. It seems to take place during World War II, where Nazis are posing as ordinary citizens, and so these two have been assigned to figure out, like, to find a couple of guests, a man and a woman, in this hotel. They are called N and M, and they've just murdered Britain's finest agents, and no one can be trusted. So it's more historical than I was anticipating, but I did not have this one, and you guys know I love collecting her stuff, especially in these beautiful illustrated cover editions. I don't actually know what these editions are called, but they're by William Morrow, so just picked up another one. I then checked out the manga section of the store and picked up the first couple of volumes of a series that I've never heard about, and it's this one, which is called Kasumi, I believe. So we've got the first two volumes of this, and it's about a girl who has magical powers, which is like, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. So we follow our main character, Kasumi. Obviously, this is who the series is based on, and she has the ability to become invisible when she holds her breath. So at the beginning of this book, she transfers to an elite private school, and apparently hiding her magical ability is getting very difficult. She catches the eye or starts to have a crush on like the it boy, and it says here, yeah, she catches the eye of the handsome student council president and becomes the target of his #1 fan, mean girl extraordinaire. And so can she keep hiding who she really is? So they only have the first two volumes there. I can't remember how many there are, but I feel like there's quite a few. So I grabbed the first two just to give me some more manga, see if I like it, try it out. I'm interested in this one because that synopsis did sound really interesting, but I tend to lean towards the contemporary over the fantastical when it comes to mangas, and this has both. It's set in a contemporary setting, they just have magical powers, and so I'm wondering if this is that line, you know, where like, because it's set contemporarily, is this going to be okay? I don't know. It just seems that when I go towards fantastical things, I never like them as much. So we're going to give this a try. I am hesitantly optimistic, but I got the first two volumes to see if I really like it. The next two books I picked up for my husband because they are both John Grisham books, and we are trying to collect them, all of these books in hardback, and these are two of his newer books that we don't actually have yet, and they were relatively cheap where we got them. So we have Sparring Partners and Sully. So Sparring Partners, I think, is his most recent one, maybe, and I honestly know nothing about these books. I'm trying to look to see. Yeah, it came out this year. So the fact that I was able to get it for like $8 is incredible. So I don't really know a whole lot about this. I am digging this cover though, I will say. He is known for his legal thrillers and things like that, and everything about this cover tells me this is going to be another one of his legal thrillers. So I'm interested to see what Chris thinks of that one. And then Sully is one that's been out for I think a couple of years, and it is a story about a basketball, the sport of basketball in some sense. Again, don't really know a whole lot about this one. It actually came out last year. it says right here, it's time John Grisham takes you to a different kind of court. So this is more of, I'm sure it'll be a thriller still because that's just his vibe, but it has to do with basketball. So I got these both for really, really cheap. So we picked them up so Chris could have them in his John Grisham collection. We then found a small independent bookstore, and like I said, I love small independent bookstores, and I've gotten into the habit of, if we can find an indie bookstore, I will try my hardest to walk out of there with something. It doesn't always work, but if I can find something that I really am interested in, then I'm going to make sure that I try to buy books from them. So I've got a couple books that I was able to pick up there. The first one is The Switch by Beth OLeary. I've started to collect these books because I loved the no-show so much, and this author has, I think, including the no-show, 4 books out, with a 5th one either coming out or just coming out, and I just want to collect them, and I love these kind of fun editions. They're just the US covers, but they all kind of match, except for the flat share, which is the one that I'm the most interested in, and I can't seem to find a decent copy of it. So anyway, I picked up this one, and this one follows a mother and daughter, and it says up here, can changing places change your life? And that's exactly what it is. I think the mom lives in the country and the daughter lives in the city, or vice versa, and they basically switch spots, and they both have romantic adventures in their respective spots. So I'm sure it's going to be a lot more soul-searching and not just a story of romance. From everything that I remember from the no-show, it's definitely a romance book, but it's like got all these other elements to it. And from what I can tell, that seems to be Beth OLeary's style. So I picked this one up from that independent bookstore because first off, I love this cover, but the idea just sounds really interesting. So I'm gonna have to do a Beth OLeary vlog and just see if all her stuff works for me. So I picked up that one, and then I was able to pick up the 3rd book in the Greystone Secrets series by Margaret Patterson Paddock. So this one is called The Messenger. So this is the end of this trilogy. I have read the other 2 in this series so far, so I'm hoping to get to this one. It probably won't be by the end of this year, but it will hopefully be early next year, so I can kind of say like I finished a trilogy. So this is a fun little like twisty psychological kind of series. That's what this author I think is really good at writing, based on the other series by her that I have read. But this series follows the Greystone children, and it's 3 kids, and this whole series starts with them looking on the news one night, and they see 3 kids with their first and middle names that have gone missing. Same ages, same everything, minus the last name. They even look a little similar, and they have gone missing. And that sends their mom into this kind of weird spiral where she goes very, very all of a sudden on a work trip. And the kids are like, that sounds suspicious. And so they start to investigate where their mom has gone and if there is a connection between her and these missing children and kind of what's going on there. And this is just the story after the last 2 books that gets really trippy and psychological and sci-fi-esque, and it's just fun. So I'm excited to see where the series ends. I have really enjoyed the first 2, so when I saw that the store had this one, I was like, well, I've got to get that one as well because I'm gonna read it hopefully very, very soon. The next book is a pre-order that I did that has finally come in, and it is a sequel that matches the same edition as the first book that I got, and that is These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. This is the sequel to These Hollow Vows, which I got in a fairy loot, I think last year, and the sequel came out. It's only a duology, so that was promising, and I read it a couple of months ago and really enjoyed it, and I thought I'd missed it. I thought I had decided not to buy this since I hadn't read it yet, because I would have had to buy this like way back in February. So I thought I talked myself out of buying it, and I was going to be so bitter because the Fairy Loot editions are like the tall hardbacks, and it wasn't going to match. At least size-wise, there's a lot of stuff that it wasn't going to match. And then I randomly got an email that was like, oh, your thing's now shipping, and I was like, I am so much smarter than I think I am, and I actually pre-ordered it. This series follows our main character, Abriella, it's set in a world where there are Seelie and Unseelie Fae, and the Fae are like thought of as not being great, and so she's like, I'm not going to get involved in any of that, and somehow she does get suckered into the dynamics between the Seelie and Unseelie courts. The Unseelie king ends up kidnapping her sister, basically to get her attention so that she'll help him with a few trials, and like he's like, hey, if you do these things for me, then I'll let your sister go. And so these things all happen to take place in the Sealy court. And so as she's there, she's posing as one of the possible brides for the prince, the Sealy prince. So she's starting to have some connection with the Sealy prince, and then there's an unsealy rebel who was helping her out as well, and there's some connections there. And it ended very dramatically with a very big twist, and I just need to know the answers. So I got this beautiful Fairy Loot edition that they did to match the first one. It's got sprayed edges. It's not signed. I think I missed, oh no, it is, never mind. There's one book that I pre-ordered and I can't remember what it is, but I missed the signed copy version, but like the rest of it looks the same. But maybe I just made that up because it's just a solid color, so maybe I missed the fun. I don't remember. There's something with this. Not that this isn't beautiful, because this is absolutely stunning. And then under the dust jacket is this beautiful hardcover, which matches the book I've got. And then the dust jacket is reversible and shows some of the characters, the main 3 characters in this series. So I am very excited about this. I'm hoping to get to this one early next year because, well, I loved the first book a whole lot, enough that I'm really glad that I pre-ordered the second one and have it. It is very similar to a lot of YA fantasy, and I don't want to forget anything. I also have a terrible memory, so I'm hoping to get to this one early next year so that I can really have like since there's only 2, I feel like I really need to get to it so that I don't like forget anything and can really go in knowing a lot of what's going on. So yes, my pre-order came in, even though I forgot that I had completely done it, but I did, and I am really happy with Past Me. I then bought the 10th volume of Saga, and that is by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. This is one that has been in the works for I don't even know how long. It's been a long time. I remember reading the entire Saga series, because when I got to it, all 9 volumes were out, and I'm pretty sure that was my very first year here on BookTube, because it was in my old apartment that I had with Lauren before Chris and I got married. So it's been a while, and I don't know if I remember everything, so it might be worth a reread of this series before we get to the most recent volume. I remember the ridiculous cliffhanger that happened at the end of the 9th volume, which left everyone a little broken, and then they decided to take a break, and I was like, that's just so rude of you. So this is one that we've all been waiting for, and well, I remember the big thing that happened, all the little bitty things about this world. I don't know if they click in my head since it's been so long, so I might have to do a reread of the series before we get to the 10th one. But I loved the series so much that I knew I had to get my hands on the 10th one once I realized it was out, which I didn't even realize it was out yet. Like, I knew it was coming, but it was already out by the time I started looking into it, and so I immediately bought it. So this is a sci-fi graphic novel series which is super popular, so I'm sure a lot of people have heard of what it's about. But the idea behind this is it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet retelling of sorts. We follow these 2 main characters and their daughter is the one who's telling the story, so it's kind of from the future. The narration is of this daughter being like looking back on her growing up. These 2 come from rival worlds. I believe there is a planet and a moon that surrounds the planet, and the people on both of these worlds do not get along. And so they fall in love and have a kid, and like all of this is a huge no-no, so they're basically on the run for this entire series. And it's sci-fi and very adult and really weird at times, but I remember really enjoying it, and I feel like there's a big gap between the last one and this one, looking at the kid on here, because I feel like she was real young at the end of the last book, but maybe I made that up. What do I know? I just remember loving it, and I am so happy that we finally have the next volume. I don't know if there's going to be another huge gap, because I feel like this is not the end. I feel like there's more. But yeah, I picked it up because I'm so excited about it. The next one is one that you will have seen because I read it in November, and that is The Gunslinger's Guide to Avoiding Matrimony by Michelle McLean. This is the second in her Gunslingers series, the first one being Hitched to a Gunslinger, which I read a couple of months ago, I think. And I read it with my friend Taylor, and we both are not huge Western fans, and read that book and adored it so much. So when we discovered that there was a second one coming out and that we could get the audiobook at the beginning of November, we both decided to buddy read it. So this is a book that takes place in the same town. It's called Desolation. And this town basically is a town of misfits. So people come because they're trying to escape their past. And so this book follows our main character, Adam Brady, who is a gunslinger, and he's doing that. He's trying to get away from his past. And since the first book, this town has become more popular than they are comfortable with. So they are basically, they have rules now, so that if you are new and you want to live in the town, then you either have to get married to someone in the town or find a job and hold up a job, and you've got a month to do these things. And so Adam Brady is in this town and he's trying to do these things. The book starts with him and this woman named Nora basically getting in an argument in this very crowded street that turns into a mass wedding, and they end up saying the right things at the right time and are basically married. And so it's the two of them. Well, she really needs a husband, and for specific like legal reasons, and he just is trying to find a place to stay, so he's trying to find a job, and it does not work well for him. But it's really these two coming together, and it's their romance, and it's so good. I love these books. So if you haven't checked out my November wrap up, which was my last video, definitely do it, because these books are so good. So I picked up this one because I didn't have it yet. The next two books came from Chris's school when they did their most recent book fair. The first one is The Fort, and this is by Gordon Norman. This is the third Gordon Norman book that we own. Both of the other two that we picked up were also from a book fair. He just seems to write really interesting stories. We haven't read any of them, but the ideas behind them are always interesting. And also, the stories are they tackle much different and difficult topics than we anticipate for middle grade. So this book specifically follows 5 kids, and it takes place after a Hurricane Leo, rips through their town. And so they basically should stay home. They know they should stay home, but they want to go out and do something because they've been stuck inside. And so they find, out in the woods, they find this shelter, and they call it the Fort. And it's basically a bomb shelter. It's got a working TV, they've got electricity, food, a TV, stuff like that. Everything's intact because it was underground. And so they were like, make a pact. I'm like, this is our safe space. And even one of the kids is using it as like a serious refuge place to avoid an abusive stepfather. So there's a lot of stuff here. And then I think people are starting to find out about it, or people are closing in and they're trying to keep this place a secret. So I don't really know the whole story behind this, but yeah, it says right here, it's our secret, don't tell. So I am interested in this because, again, all of his books have a very interesting idea behind them, but they all seem to tackle a very tough subject in one way or the other, and this is just the most recent one. So when Chris brought it home, when I saw the author, I was like, that does not surprise me, because we've just seemed to start collecting this author's books. So hopefully next year, 2022, will be the year that I read this author, because I am very interested, and we should stop collecting if we don't read them. But this was the most recent one that he picked up. And then we also picked up this cute little picture book. It's called Oscar and the 8 Blessings. It's by Richard Simmons and Tanya Simmons, and it's illustrated by Mark Siegel. This book is actually a holiday book about Hanukkah, but it takes place during Nazi occupation, so World War II, and it follows Oscar, and he has basically been sent to New York City to live with his aunt that he has never met, to basically get him out of Germany or wherever he lives, Poland maybe, basically to not be in Europe anymore. He's got off this train and all he has is an address and a picture, and he's just trying to make his way through New York City to go find his aunt's house. And through that, he discovers all these small kindnesses across the city. And Chris brought it home, and we immediately like sat down and ended up reading the whole thing, and it hits you in the feels, my dude. So we definitely picked this up. It's going to go in our Christmas/holiday book collection that's going to be sitting out. But it's super cute, and I love a good holiday book that makes you feel things. So, yeah, we picked that one up. It just looked real fun, and then we read it and went, oh god, the feelings! We didn't expect to have so many feelings. The next 2 books came from my most recent fairy loot, so that would have been October's. I believe, because I'm always a month behind. So I unboxed it last month, so I'll leave it linked above if you'd like to check it out, if you don't want to know what the books are quite yet. But here's your warning that I'm going to tell you, because we did get an extra book this month, and that one is Princess of Souls by Alexandra Christo. I've only read one thing by this author, which was To Kill a Kingdom, and I read it quite a while ago, but I loved it. It was so good. And this is one that I quite literally put on my TBR. I stumbled across it and it sounded super interesting, and I put it on my Goodreads TBR like days before I got my book in the mail. And it says right here on the top, "A girl cursed for eternity, a boy on a quest for vengeance." So if I understand correctly, this is a retelling of sorts of the story of Rapunzel, which is exciting. So we follow our two main characters, Celestra and Nox. And Celestra, it has a very, very powerful magic and has been locked away in a tower by the cruel king. And her destiny is to foretell the death and harvest doomed souls to feed his immortality. And so Nox is a soldier who has spent years plotting vengeance on the crown. And his goal is basically like, we're just going to get rid of everybody. We're going to kill everybody in the king's court, starting with her. And then, of course, things don't go quite as planned, and their fates intertwine or something like that. But it just sounds really interesting, and I love this author. From like the one thing I've read, I love this author. So this sounds so good. So that was our like extra book this month. And then the book that we got in the box was this one, which is One Dark Window, and it's by Rachel Gilling. And I've honestly forgotten what this is about. I feel like it's not inspired by Beauty and the Beast, but it has the vibes of Beauty and the Beast, if I remember correctly. We follow our main character, Elizabeth, and she has a darkness inside her, a spirit that's trapped inside her head that she calls Nightmare. It says here, he protects her, he keeps her secrets, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. So she runs into a mysterious highwayman on the forest roads and is thrust into a world of shadow and deception. And I think this, they embark on a journey, and this monster in her head maybe starts taking control in a sense. I really don't know, but it sounds terrifying. This is a super creepy cover, although I do like that. That's kind of quite cool. But yeah, that was our book that we received in Fairy Loot. The next one I picked up was one that I didn't even realize was coming out this year. I thought it was coming out next year, and that is the third volume of Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. So I love the series, you guys know. This is a graphic novel series that is quite popular right now, but it's this kind of a reimagining of the story of Hades and Persephone, in a very modernized world and a very cool art style. I don't know if you can tell there, but like everyone has their own like color, and I just think that the art style in here is absolutely beautiful. But that's really all I can tell you. There's not a whole lot to the story. I think it's just like these two people coming together, and we're in volume 3 and they're not really a thing yet. So there's a lot of pining. There's a lot of mutual pining for these characters. I will say this does tackle some tougher subjects, so check out the trigger warnings. The author does keep a content warning listed at the beginning of all of her volumes. So this one specifically deals with themes of physical and mental abuse, sexual trauma, and toxic relationships. And I believe the other two deal with those specific things as well. So there is some tougher subjects, especially, which you would kind of expect when you talk about like the Greek gods. Like, they're just not great people. So she does a good job of making us like people that, like, historically, Greek god-wise, we shouldn't like, but doesn't steer clear of the tougher subjects as well. So I just love her art style, and I love Hades and Persephone, and I thought this book was coming out next year. And it clearly is not. It came out at the end of this year. I think the second one came out. Yeah, the second volume came out earlier this year as well. So volume 4 will be coming out next year. You can read the whole thing up to date on the app Webtoons if you would like. It's free online, so you don't have to buy the books. I just really enjoy it, and I want to collect them physically in a like this floppy fun format. So I expect to get to this one relatively quickly, because I love the series so much it's hard for me to hold on to it and not read it. But this is the most recent volume, and they are quite heavy, I will say. Alright, the rest, I believe, the rest of these books all came from a used bookstore, the second one that we went to this month. And the first one that I got there was this one, which is The Road Trip by Beth OLeary. Again, as you can see, I'm collecting her books, and I just love these US editions. So this book basically travels. It's a road trip book. It's a journey novel. We follow our main characters, Dylan and Addie, who were together for a while and have broken up. And so they collide again because Addie and Dylan's cars crash together. They're all going to, I believe, a mutual friend's wedding, and it's going to be like a road trip to that. And one of their cars, I don't know if it's Dylan's or Addie's, but one of their cars is undrivable, and so they all end up having to road trip together with your ex. Isn't that fun? And I think there's going to be obviously some more conversations and just some interesting things. So as you can see, I am collecting Beth OLeary's books, and I might have to make a vlog out of them just because, like, I feel like I need to see if I really like her, you know? Since the No Show is so good, I'm very interested in these two. And then the only one I don't have at this point is the Flat Share, so I do need to pick up that one. But yeah, I saw this one at the used bookstore, and I was like, well, I just have to get it now. The next one I picked up was another Agatha Christie, and that is this one, which is Sleeping Murder, the Miss Marple's Last Case. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's part of the Miss Marple series, and it's the very last book in this series. This book is it's gonna be so fun, I can already tell. We follow our main character, Gwenda, who moved into a new home in this town, and she's trying to renovate it, she's trying to make it more modernized, easier to live in, and nothing is going right. She doesn't feel comfortable in this. She feels terror every time she climbs the stairs, it says. So she turns to Miss Marple to help her exorcise her ghosts. Whatever that means. I guess she believes that the house is haunted. And it says here, between them, they were to solve a perfect crime committed many years ago. So there's some stuff happening in this house, and Miss Marple is there to help save the day. But I just find it funny that I have one of her very first books and one of the last books in the Miss Marple series. But yeah, it's just this cover. These covers are so pretty. I then picked up a nonfiction book that I've actually had my eye on for quite a while. I think it's been on my wish list that I've got on Amazon for like a couple of years at this point, but it sounds so interesting. And that is How to Be a Victorian, a Dawn to Dusk Guide to Victorian Life by Ruth Goodman. And that's exactly what this is. I was looking at the chapter list, the table of contents. That's the word I was trying to find. The table of contents. I'm really a book person, I swear. But it basically it starts at the beginning of the day with getting up, getting dressed, going to the bathroom, what that would look like if you were in Victorian, grooming, things like that. All the way down to breakfast, your midday meal, what you would do in the afternoon, the evening meal, and how you would get ready for bed. So it's quite literally exactly what it sounds like. It shows you what life was like in Victorian England at this time, socially, which I find fascinating. I just think that's going to be a really interesting book to read about, because there is a lot about the Victorian life that I do understand, but it's all been, I don't even know what the right word is, but I see it through the lens of like historical romances and historical fiction and things like that, whereas this is going to tell me exactly what it was like, and I just think that's going to be so interesting. So I am definitely going to be getting to this one relatively quickly because I couldn't believe I saw it. I have never seen this book in person. I've only ever seen it online, so the fact that I was able to find a copy pretty cheap was very exciting. So yeah, I got a nonfiction and I'm very excited about it. And then the next one I picked up is one that you will have seen because it's on my December TBR, and that's The Matzo Ball, and this is by Jean Meltzer. So this is a hate to love romance that takes place during Hanukkah. So we follow our main character, Rachel, who says right here, is a nice Jewish girl with a shameful secret. She loves Christmas. So she is a Christmas romance novelist, and she loves things merry. She loves all the good like vibes that come with Christmas, but she's hiding this from her family. And so her publisher basically says, you should write a Hanukkah romance. I think that'd be so great. And she's like, oh boy. And so all of her inspiration dries up, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. I can't lose my contract. So she decides that what she's going to do is she's going to find her muse at the Matzo Ball, which is a Jewish music celebration on the last night of Hanukkah. And she ends up having to work with her summer camp arch enemy, Jacob. And then I think, of course, there might be a romance of sorts that blooms between the two of them. This book was really popular last year. I'm pretty sure it came out last year, which is probably why it was so popular. I was seeing it everywhere. Yeah, it came out in 2021. So I just have heard good things about this, and I really wanted to get it on my list. I was going to buy it at some point before December, but the fact that I was able to find it at a used bookstore is just perfect. So I picked that one up, and we will be getting to this one a little bit later this month. And the rest of these books are, you guessed it, historical romances. The first one is another Lorraine Heath book that I picked up, and that is A Master of Temptation. This is one, again, I didn't really need to pick it up, and I don't know anything about this book because even if I wanted to, there's no synopsis. I have no idea what this is about. I just thought this cover and the back of this book was absolutely stunning. Oh, there is a little bit of a synopsis. It says, the handsome Duke whom Victoria married is more deliciously exciting than the cold-hearted rogue she was engaged to. How could he possibly be the same man? Ooh. Oh, that sounds good. But I just loved the green of this. I thought it was beautiful. So we picked that one up. And then the next three books I picked up, I have heard of this author's name before, but I don't know anything about this author. And there is a book warehouse that's near Y'allfest, which is what Lauren and I went to, which is where a lot of these books came from, the used bookstore around there. But there's this used bookstore that I swear people get rid of entire trilogies there, because I've been able to find a few solid trilogies there, and especially if they're older, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find these covers. So I liked one of them, and then I realized that all three of them were there, so I picked them up, and then are these three, and they're by Elizabeth Hoyt. So we have the Leopard Prince, the Raven Prince, and the Serpent Prince. Do I have any idea what these books are about? No. So there is baby synopses at the very top of these, so I'll read those really quick. So the Leopard Prince follows Lady Georgiana, who doesn't want a husband, though she could use a good steward to run her estate. One look at Henry Pye, and Georgiana knows she's not dealing with a serpent, but a man, so maybe fun love there. The Raven Prince says widowed Anna is having a wretched day. After an arrogant man on horseback nearly crushes her, she arrives home to learn that she is in dire financial strait. Ooh, marriage of convenience, maybe. And then the Serpent Prince says that country-bred Lucy Hayes is content with her quiet life until the day she trips over a naked, unconscious man and loses her innocence forever. These just sound fun. So I don't actually know the order of which one came first, but this is the trilogy. These are the three, and like, look how beautifully matched these covers are. So, did I need them? No. Do they all sound good? Yes. So I picked them up for the covers. Also, yes. The next three are all part of the Highland Guard series. I was able to find a few more. So we have The Rock, The Ghost, and The Arrow. So I feel like I don't need to explain these because I explained the other two that I found earlier this month. But these are, we've got a couple from the later part of the series. As you can see, like, the covers are just so vastly different. And this one's from, I think it might be one of the first few, actually. So yeah, I picked up the few that I didn't have. And I think at this point, I really do only not have maybe like one or two. I don't remember what those are, but we picked up a few more of those. And then the last two, without even realizing, were by the same author. So this one's, actually both of these have been on my TBR for a while. So these two are specifically because of, I found these books and these have been on my radar. So we have this one by Suzanne Enoch, and it's Hit Me With Your Best Scott, and it's the second book in the Wild Wicked Highlander series. The first one is, what's this one called? Oh, I used to know. It had a weird title. It's Getting Scott in Here. Oh yeah, it's Getting Scott in Here and Scott Under the Covers. So they all have fun twists on the title. It follows three brothers, the MacTaggart brothers. Each have one task: find English brides or lose their land. So the series follows, I believe, three different brothers. This one is Cole, and the love interest for him is Persephone. Ooh, that's gonna be fun. But actually, my friend Taylor has this series, and they look so good. They're Scottish romances. So when I saw this one, which again is like the first time I've ever seen it in print, like in person. I have been looking for them, but I've never been able to find them. So the fact that I was able to find one is very exciting. So Scottish romance, very excited about that. And then this one is her newer book, which is Something in the Air, again by Suzanne Enoch. I believe it came out this year, if I am correct. Yeah, 2022. And I found it there as well, which is crazy. This is a second chance romance. Well, kind of. It's about a married couple. So it says, smart, capable heiress Emmeline will do anything to keep her beloved home, and all it takes is an arranged marriage and a teeny white lie to fulfill her family's silly inheritance rules. So we follow Emmeline and William, who are enjoying a perfectly content marriage for about 8 years. The relationship is seamless. They've got the same goals. They don't really need anything. They've lived in separate parts of the house, basically living separate lives under the same roof. And it's very content to stay that way. However, it says right here, this is the fun part, Emmeline's grandfather, the reclusive Duke of Welshire, summons them both for his birthday celebration and demands they bring their 2 little Angela children. However, they don't exist. She made up these kids so they could live where they're living, and so she can inherit the hall. And so they're like, oh, this is no problem. We'll just get 2 small little, it says here, borrow 2 cherubs to call their own. What could go wrong? But, of course, they picked the most 2 unruly orphans in Britain. So they're married, second chance in the sense of, like, they're content to not really have a relationship, and now they have to work together to pretend to have kids. And then, of course, the kids are gonna be, it's just gonna be a rom-com mess, and I'm so excited. I'm sure my bet is that they will end up with these kids by the end. The kids are going to love them and they're going to adopt them. That's my theory. But it just sounds like so much fun. And I've seen it circling here a lot recently, which is probably why, because it came out probably recently. So yeah, I picked this one up and I just think it's going to be so, it just sounds so good. And that's it. Those are all of the books that I picked up in the month of November. Oh my goodness, this video is so long. I do apologize. Anyway, like I said, I will leave as much linked down below as I can. If you'd like to check out all of these books on your own or are interested in one or the other, feel free to check out better synopsises online somewhere. And if you have read any of the books that I've talked about in this video, please let me know. If you have picked up something fun in the last couple of months, let me know. Are you a pre-orderer person? Have you pre-ordered anything that came out in the fall? I feel like all my pre-orders come out in the spring and not the fall. So if you have anything fun that has come out recently, let me know. And if you want to comment something but you're not sure what to comment a snowflake. Why not? We're getting into the holiday season. I'm about to start all my fun holiday end of the year content. So leave a snowflake. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there as well as other fun bookish links, so we're going to check all of that out. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! I think that was the longest haul I've ever done.